This is everything you need to know to get hired. Hi, my name is Jason Roberts. I'm a recruiter. I've been a recruiter for 25 years. My goal with this video is to give you a quick start guide. This is an overview. Think of it as like the foreword or the first chapter of a book when it comes to getting hired. What I'm going to walk through is the most important things to know when building a resume, the most important things to know about an interview, and then the most important things about the offer process and negotiating an offer. We'll walk through the basics of each of those. Now, I have deeper dive videos on each of these topics that we'll link to along the way, but this is your quick start guide. Here we go. All right, let's start with creating your resume. Creating your resume, I have a template here that I'm going to link in for you, but there are a few things to know about creating a resume today. The first is you want a very basic template. There was a time when it was seen as a big deal to have your resume printed on really nice paper, perhaps, to have your resume laid out graphically in a really nice way, lots of little columns and call outs on the side and things like that. Today, it's not that. The most important thing to get your resume passed today is what's called an applicant tracking system. That's the tool that companies use in order to manage the process of hiring, is the applicant tracking system. You've got to get past the ATS first. And the ATS is a pretty simple machine. It's not super smart. It's not all that sophisticated yet. Some companies have done better than others, but most of the time, it's not that smart. So what you have to do in this case is you have to build a resume that's very basic, doesn't confuse the parsing engine, the one who extracts information from your resume and places it into the applicant tracking system. So a lot of these parsing engines are not very good. And what your job is to overcome that problem by having a very clean, well laid out resume. One column, your information should be at the very top: name, address, phone number, not a separate call out box, no separate text boxes. Don't worry about formatting all that much. All right. In the top. Next, you'll go into I don't believe in objective statements because I think we all have the same objective when we're sending a resume in. Ultimately, it's to find a new job, and the things that we would normally put, like if we were being super truthful about our objective, like I don't like my job and I want to quit and I hate it and I want to go do something else, doesn't play real well in the objective statement. So what I like is an executive summary. So a 2-sentence, maybe up to 4, summary of your background and the things that you need to call out that are specific about that particular job that you're applying for. When people say customize your resume, this is where you do it, and this is where you can have the most impact, is right there in the front. The next section, either education or experience. You put education at the top. If you have more education, then you have experience. So if you have a 4-year degree and you have 2 years of experience, you put your 4-year degree up first. You've done that more. And you may put some details about projects and things you worked on in there, but that's what you do in the beginning. If you have been working 4 or more years, you put your experience first. Experience is seen as more valuable than education these days, and you put your experience first. Most people in their professional career, once they've been out of college for a few years, they start shifting to put their experience first. You list your experience in reverse chronological order. Your most recent job back to your oldest job. You'll need to go about 10 years back. And then what you can say is additional experience available upon request after a 10-year period. So unless there's a specific technology or capability or something listed on the job spec that you need to call out from an older job, you start to lose value in including them, and you put that toward the back. When you do your education, you have your school that you attended, the dates attended, and the degree achieved. All right. So you put your degree achieved in there. I would also bundle in, after your formal education, I would bundle in certifications. And then finally, at the very bottom, at the very end, I would put 2 things. One is any awards or accomplishments that you want to call out. And then the last piece is a skills section that calls out key skills. And this is where you can extract a bunch of keywords from your job posting and include those in the skills section. Skills are a big deal right now, and people are they're moving to a skills-based hiring model. It doesn't really matter. The big deal is the ATS isn't smart enough to say, oh, well, this isn't something I should include in my search. So it includes that in the search when it returns your information. When recruiters search for your resume, the way that they get your resume is based on relevancy. So they'll run their search, or maybe they'll say, find me all the candidates that are a good fit for a specific job. They'll just point it to the job and the machine will run the search. What will happen in the end is they'll get your resume. It'll be listed based on who's the most relevant, who's the best match versus the worst match to that initial search or that initial job description. So what you want to do is you want to have all the keywords that are available that will trigger in a search. So anything you think they may search for, you want to include those keywords in your resume. It's a big deal. Skills section is a big place to do that. If there's a really key keyword, if there's a really important keyword that you think they're for sure going to search for this one thing, make sure that's in some titles of jobs. The job titles are ranked higher. All right. So those are the things you need to know. There's one last trick that a lot of people are using today, which is to use AI, specifically ChatGPT is my favorite, in order to customize your resume. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to leave a link to a video where I show you how to do that right here. You can follow that link. I give a prompt that I've already written in. And there's also a custom GPT that I wrote. If you have the paid ChatGPT, you can use that custom GPT. It's not being sold. It's just that the custom GPTs are only available to pro account holders. Okay, let's move on to interviews. Interviews, a few important things to know. Interviews are comprised of different types of interviews. The first one is typically, it depends on the size of company. If you're in a small, medium-sized business, you'll probably talk directly to the hiring manager. Larger enterprises, you're talking to a recruiter to start, maybe even a person called a sourcer. Sourcers are people who specialize just in hunting down people with the background that they need. All right. So your first interview is a recruiter interview. That's a screen. That's to understand your basic qualifications. They're trying to understand, do you meet the qualifications in the job description itself? All right. Your goal in that conversation is not to overimpress, but it's really the big deal is you're getting to the next meeting. You're getting to that next call. The next call is with the hiring manager. This is the most important interview. You want to meet with this hiring manager, and that hiring manager is really the person that sets the stage. They're prepping everybody else that's talking to you. Yeah, if you get them hype about you and you get them excited about you, that's the one to go for. The next interview is typically a team-based interview. They oftentimes will do those individually, sometimes in groups or teams. When you do those team-based interviews, just know that each person has a voice in this. What will happen in the end is they'll all send in their feedback. The hiring manager will make the final decision. All right. So you stay in touch with that hiring manager along the way. You check for status updates and things like that. Find good excuses without being annoying to stay in touch with that hiring manager, and that will help you in the end. And then that hiring manager sometimes will prep you. So my big tip that I give people is when you're going for the hiring manager interview, I always ask for any interview, really ask for two questions. The first question is this: do you see anything in my background that raises a red flag that I should address while we're still on the phone? That question is gold. There are people who are going to argue and say that you shouldn't ask that. They're just wrong. I've been doing it for 25 years. It's the right thing to do. Ask that question. The second one is just as important. And it's, what are the next steps? Who do you think I'll need to talk to next? And then what I do is I tend to drill in to understand a little bit more about each of those people. And then as I'm asked to meet with new additional people, I'll ask about them. Okay, what do they do? How will this role interface with that person? What's important to them? Do they have any current pain points that I should make sure that I address in the conversation? I'm not asking for coaching. Don't tell me what to say. Just tell me what to be prepared for. And asking those sorts of questions and being prepared for the interview, that's really what will win you the position. So don't ever lie in an interview. You'll get caught, honestly. But do ask questions that help you be prepared and help you be on your front foot so that you can make the best possible impression. And really the big deal is you spend that time that you have with the person that's interviewing on things that they care about. So spend your time that way. All right. Following the team interview, the last interview is oftentimes with an executive, a leader, the hiring manager's boss many times. It's usually a rubber stamp. So if you've gotten here, you're home free at this point, but it can still get screwed up. Just don't screw it up, right? So understand what they're looking for, what their hot buttons are, what they care about, and try to speak to those things. Try to speak to what they're going to care about the most. All right, let's talk about offers. So if you make it through the resume phase, you got matched, somebody sent your resume to a manager, you did all the interviews that we just talked about. Next thing to do, the most important next part is, let's figure out how do you get you paid. How do you get paid the most possible for this particular work? Now, there's a little bit of gamesmanship. Along the way, they will be asking you what your salary expectations are. I try to avoid getting into salary discussions as long as I possibly can. I push that conversation back as far as I can in the discussion. And what I try to say is, well, let's talk more about the role. Let's see exactly what you need. Part of what I'm doing is I'm selling myself and I'm getting them excited and upping the value that I'm going to bring so that they'll tell me that the job is worth what I think it's worth. If they tell me right up front, they don't know me. They can't say what they think I'm worth. They can say what they think in general people ought to pay for that sort of job, but they don't know me yet. So I want them to know a little bit about me before they set their price. I also don't want to put out a price because it could be what I've seen other people get paid is really low compared to what these people are accustomed to paying. Offers. Here's the offer. Avoid the compensation thing. Let them mention money first. So find a way to get them to the place where they're going to mention money first. It's a bit of a dance. It's a back and forth. They're not going to want to give either. And if you're working with a recruiter, they do this for a living. They negotiate these things, and it's going to be harder for you. So just know that you're trying to get them to at least give you a range. As soon as somebody gives you a range, oh, it could be $80,000 to $100,000. Perfect. I was hoping we could talk about $100,000. And then you make them tell you why you're not worth it because they don't know how to. Nobody likes confrontation. So if you let them give you a range and you camp out at the top end of that range, oh, I was hoping we would be able to talk about that number. All right. So that's really where you go. You're really trying to let them get to that spot first. Now, if they come back with something and it's not what you want, so say your vacation is too low or you want a sign-on bonus, ask. There's no harm in asking. In fact, there's lots of stuff that's negotiable on a job offer that they have thresholds that they can go up and down on. Vacation is oftentimes one of those. It's one of the easier ones to ask for more. And go for that. That's usually a pretty simple thing unless there's a hard policy that they just can't get beyond. So take the opportunity to negotiate anything that isn't quite right for you. Don't feel like you're on the back foot. You can always ask for anything during a negotiation. You get one chance to ask. This is important. You ask for what you want after the first conversation. They will go back and try to get you everything that they can from that because they're trying to close that deal. They're trying to get you to accept. So they'll go back and try to get you everything they can. They'll come back with their counter offer. They might be able to give you everything. They might say, hey, we can only get this far. That's pretty much it. You can't keep going back for extra stuff. You ask one time and you're done. All right. Very important. So ask for anything that you want in that one time. They'll go and try for you. And then when you come back, your window is pretty closed. Now, you can probably ask if you really had to. Like if it's one of those things where I can't take this job, I can't pay my bills given what they're trying to pay, then you're at the point where you either have to say no to the job or you have to ask one more time for a little more compensation. And that's the time to do it. That's the time to add another extra layer of negotiation. Otherwise, you get one ask, they come back with one response, and then you want to close it. Time kills all deals. You want to get closed as quickly as you can. All right. Well, that's it. That is the full Quickstart guide. I'm linking to a good number of other things that can help you. I've linked along the way here in cards and in the top of the screen. So you should have been able to see those. And what I encourage you to do is like this, subscribe, and actually check out my channel. I have a number of other things, including a playlist on how to get hired. Do this to get a job. This is actually the name of the playlist because it's literally all the things. And I'm going to put this, now that this video exists, it goes in the very front of that. Do this to get a job. Take a look at that because I go into detail on each of the topics I talked about today in separate videos if you want a little bit more detail. The other thing to know, I answer my comments and I do live Q&As. So take a look at the channel, look for the next live Q&A, and feel free to jump on. And I do answer questions there. The other way to get a question to me is sending me an email, jason@betterthing.net. That simple. All right. Thank you so much. Best of luck in finding your job.